Hi, my name is Juan Anaya. I am neurophysiotherapist at I Foundation, and I have the pleasure of conducting this interview for the first Congress for patients with functional neurological disorder organized by this foundation, by the Foundation. Today, I'm interviewing Bridget Milton. I hope I said it well. um, from FNDHope. FNDHope is the first and only global charity for people with functional neurological disorder, and it covers the hidden world of FND that all of us could understand and try to empower those affected to live their best possible life. That I think that it's great, and we have a lot of learn in Spain from these people because they are great. Okay, there, Bridget. Thank you very much for participating in this interview and introducing FNDHope to Spain. At this moment, like I told you before, we are starting to organize patient organizations or associations in Spain. So your experience will be very helpful and inspiring for us, I'm sure. So good afternoon here, Bridget. Good morning there. How are you?
Great. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I hope that there's something I can say that will inspire those that are thinking about it. It can feel very overwhelming. I definitely know that. But it's definitely worth the time and effort to move forward in advocacy for patients with FND. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard. So in the first place, I wanted to ask you how your interest in functional neurological disorders began, how you came to be involved with FNDHope, or you can introduce yourself the way you want.
Perfect. I began having symptoms and they were somewhat gradual. I went through several years of doctor's appointments, pretty much standard, trying to figure out what was wrong with me. I had many different diagnoses along the way. Functional disorder popped up here and there. And my health, though, meanwhile, kept declining. And after about 4 or 5 years, I was told I would never walk again. And I couldn't hardly even sit up and talk. My health had deteriorated so badly. And so during that time, though, I found that I was having a difficult time getting doctors to really look at what was going on and to explore other ideas or to find treatment, support, anything. And
Yeah.
so meanwhile, I'd gotten on Facebook and started to connect with other people. Back then, there weren't a lot of groups for functional disorder. But I one night just decided that it was time. I kept reading things about me that were from doctors or other people's perspectives. And I felt like this is not my experience
Yeah.
and it wasn't the experience of other people I was meeting. And so I thought we need a place. So April 13th, 2012 is when I started fndhope.org and created a website and sent it to a couple of my friends that I had communicated with that had an FND diagnosis. And it kind of just exploded from there. And within a matter of months, we decided it needed to be a charity. And so I founded FNDHope in the US. Most of the work that was being done, though, was in the UK. So a lot of the focus of doctors and the attention was actually in the UK.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of just how we got started with the organization. It was a platform for patients to tell their story and to share their experience and to finally have a voice in
Okay.
this hidden world.
So it's an association that is centered in the patient. I think no that the patient has a lot of to say, and the experience is the most important thing, no, and try to share the experiences and try to learn together, and also speak to the world, to the professionals and the healthcare professionals about this. This FND that is kind of mysterious historically, but today we know that it isn't any kind of a mystery. So I think that your work is really, really interesting, and you are in a lot of countries now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are
Uh,
you? Yeah.
Well, we have organizations and representatives in different countries, and then also, just our website. The way the world works nowadays, it's very easy to be
Yeah.
global in some respect. So we service about 167 countries as far as our
Whoa.
website and people coming to the organization looking for information. And then we also have legal charities in Canada and the UK with representation in Australia and the Netherlands and a few other countries that we're working on. So yeah, it's definitely
Okay,
growing.
Bridget. It's
I,
fantastic. Yeah.
I think it just shows the need out there. That really
Okay.
was, FNDHope started as a grassroots effort of, me as a mother in Idaho that needed support and needed to reach out and needed to know that there were more people out there and treatment available. And it's turned into really a global organization of people coming together from all walks of life to try to
Okay.
support another.
Yeah. Okay, Bridget, and this from this global perspective, the perspective that I think that it's very interesting. Um, in your experience, what are the main needs that patients convey to you or ask about, like more help? I don't know if you see like similar things in a lot of countries. Like I don't know if there are a lot of needs that it doesn't matter if you're in Spain or in the United States or in the United Kingdom. Uh, do you hear similarities? Things like, oh, we need something like it's very, very similar in these countries?
I think absolutely, because the human experience is the same. It may be different in different countries and how we receive validation and things like that. But at the end of the day, patients need to know that they're heard, that they're understood, and that they matter. And people in general, that's what they need. And so I think, first of all, it's patients in any country first need to know that they are believed in what they are experiencing is their truth. And
The truth.
it's not all in their head. And that is the number
Hmm.
one message that we really try to make sure that every patient everywhere knows these symptoms are not all in your head. You are not putting them on that would be a different disorder. That would not be functional disorder. And so I think it's really important that all patients are believed.
Yeah. I'm sure that is very important. And if you could give us like a main problem, the big problem that you think that is the maybe the problem that we have to deal with if we have a FND, what will you say that it will be? The main
Well,
problem, or maybe do you think that is that the healthcare professionals or services don't know about these kind of problems, or do you think that is like the psychiatric, or like you said, like it's all in your head tradition, or what do you think? If you have to say one or two main problems.
Well, I think for patients, a big problem is accessing treatment
Yeah,
programs that work.
yeah.
Even if there are different programs, but not all of them are as effective as
Mm,
others. So I think that in general is a difficult problem for anyone in any country. Some not as much as others, but definitely still a problem. I think in general, though, within the ideology of functional disorder and patients and doctors is their ability to come together and acknowledge each other's perspective. I think there's a tendency for patients to think that doctors don't understand or don't care sometimes when they do. And
mm,
I think sometimes doctors feel like patients aren't hearing them. And I think it's kind of this combination of their perspective and lack of
100%.
communication and the ability to talk about
Mhm.
FND in a way that we can understand what the other one is saying.
Same. Okay. And if you want, we can speak about not only your perspective, but in your association, you see all the kinds of FND problems like movement, sensitive, or seizures, or are you specialized in some kind of FND in particular?
No, we don't. We really try
Too.
to bring it, whatever symptoms patients have,
Okay.
we try to support them. And because there is such an array of symptoms and they do, as you know, change. And so we really do try to acknowledge all the differences there. You know, we are also working on a lot of research projects. We currently, last year, we helped with 38 research projects throughout the different countries in helping to get patients and doctors connected. But also we have our own registry that it's being updated now. But there are some things that we're finding there that maybe sometimes doctors don't always think to ask, and some symptoms that patients we hear about, but aren't on the typical list of symptoms that you may find. And so, you know, things like that are, as an organization, we're trying to find what are doctors not asking, what are the questions that aren't really being looked into, and how can we push that a little bit if we feel like it's relevant.
Okay, Bridget, how many persons are you, more or less, in the world, in FNDHope? If you had to say, more or less.
Well, I guess it depends on, you know, as far as peer support groups, we have about 34,000 people in our various groups. And, you know, some of those may be in multiple groups, so it's hard to completely have an accurate number. We, as I mentioned, 167 countries that
No.
we support there. Yeah, so there's a lot of different numbers, but honestly, as an organization, we're rather small. You know, we're all volunteers,
Yeah.
and we just do what we can as much as we can when we can, and that's kind of
Yeah.
our goal. And
Marvelous. Here in Spain, we are living the starting or the birth of the first associations of patients, because here, I don't know what is the state of the art there in the United States, but here in Spain, I'm a physical therapist, and my experience is that in the last 10 or 15 years, I've said like 3 or 4 diagnosis of FND, because there are here the doctors are reluctant to say that you have FND, because historically it was like a psychiatric diagnosis. Here there are a lot of people that think today that FND is like diagnosis when you don't know what has the patient, and you have to say something like, okay, I don't know what is your illness, because we did what we have to do, and we don't know anything. So what would you say for these people that are trying to create the first organization, because they are here in the Congress today, listening to you? I think that they are like shy, maybe, or like, because you know, FND isn't very famous here in Spain. We are like the first trying to bring this problem. So, what do you say to them?
I would definitely say their hesitancy, it's valid. It's scary. It's scary to sit in a room as a patient representative in a room full of doctors and tell them actually what you're thinking or how you're saying that is wrong. And
Yeah.
that's, you know, I've had to do that. And there's been a couple instances where, you know, I try to just pick one or two things and really hone in on those. But I think advocacy in general is the most empowering activity that we can engage in. And it's giving a voice to something within you that is has been quieted down for one reason or another. And so giving a voice to that and giving a voice to that deeper passion is really
Yeah.
important. And I think if you can look at the lives that it impacts, at some point it's not all about you, and you have to be able to step outside of yourself and recognize that if I am doing this, I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
it for the greater good and to help other
Or,
people so they don't have to experience maybe the frustration or pain that I as an individual went through. I'm trying to make it better for somebody else. And that's why, and I encourage everyone, it is scary, but I encourage
yeah.
people to speak their truth.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you can say that when this first association of Spain bring or the FND Hope will wait for them with the open arms. So, okay.
Absolutely.
Because here in
Yeah,
Spain you don't have any activity. I don't know if you here in
we
Spain you don't
don't.
have it. Okay, so it's perfect.
Yes, we have created our booklet is in Spanish now, and we
Yeah.
are trying to work towards building more content for the Spanish community in general. And yeah, there's a lot of different ways that we can interact. And advocacy is a lot of work in doing the day-to-day operations, and then there's the administrative side. As an organization, and international, we try to take care of some of the organizational side, so it allows people to be able to do the work in the actual advocacy that they want to do, instead of trying to manage volunteers
Manage
and manage
volunteers.
documents and policies and things like that. We try to help in that respect so they can do the work that they want to do on the ground.
Okay, Bridget, for the patients that are listening to us in this interview, what would be the resources that you could say to them for information, or like, okay, if you have a diagnosis for this FND problem, what will be the main information channels that you could give them? Or the resources for, say, like you there have information of quality, or information that you can trust, and this is the main site that you say that is okay for read, or listen
I
some
think I get
podcasts, or
I
anything
think
that
I
you
get what you're
could.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think what's helpful for an organization, especially trying to start in a country like Spain, where there's questionability around the diagnosis already,
Yeah.
that can be very difficult to get started and to get people to listen and say, no, really, this is the truth and this is what's going on. So I feel like connecting, I guess, as an organization, and part of the way we've gone about it, is that it does give credibility. And there is also a need for consistency. And as I kind of mentioned before about the communication, things as simple as terminology. There's a lot of different names that this illness has gone through over the course of history and in different countries. Our goal is to try to define some of these the verbiage that we're using, and to keep it consistent throughout all the countries. So when we look at research, when we talk to patients, we're all talking about the same things and we know what we're talking about. That also lends credibility to the illness in general.
Yeah.
And we do that with working with doctors and trying to find very credible doctors that are on our medical advisory boards, and helping to contribute to the content that we have created with webinars and other materials like that.
Okay. It's wonderful, because I think that information is the first thing that you have to information, and have the possibility to speak with other persons like you that have your experiences, and that are suffering, because you know that maybe here in Spain we also have this story of, okay, FND is like second type of diagnosis, is all in your head, and so we are questioning your diagnosis and trying to make you feel like you don't have a real or actual illness, and that is like, okay, it's pain, but it's not so much pain. Okay, it's a seizure, but it's not very, very, you don't have any danger, or you can live your life, because if you stop thinking about this, it will disappear. No? So, and we
There's
have
a
this problem because patients say like, okay, how can I stop thinking about what I'm
right.
suffering, and this pain is real. So I think that what you said, it's very, very important, because sometimes I feel like the loneliness, or maybe this isolation from patient is the worst. Is
It's
like, it's like death for
absolutely.
for patient. Yeah.
And I think, you know, another point you bring up is one of the very first things I kept hearing was when the diagnosis used to be given, it was typically like, this is great news.
Yeah.
You have
Okay.
FND,
It's
you don't have a
like
stroke. And I sat there thinking, how is this great news? And I
yeah.
feel like that's probably one of the most impactful things I've actually done, is because I finally was like, stop saying that. This is not great news. A
Yeah, yeah.
patient disabled in some form or another, if they have
Yeah.
movement disorders, they're having seizures. Many have lost their jobs. They've
Yeah.
been questioned by the medical community. They don't have access to healthcare. And half the people don't believe that they even have anything wrong with them. You tell me what is positive about that.
Positive
And
about
so it finally kind of started to ring in a little bit like, oh, wait, okay. So, you know, I'm like, the potential to get better is there, and it's
is there.
great. But if you don't have access to care, then it may as well not even exist. And so I think it's really important that,
Yeah.
that patients are not feeling isolated,
Yeah.
that they're feeling validated, that what they're going through and what they're experiencing is real. And on even as a healthcare, like for hospitals, you know, a lot of times it's like, why should we get involved? Well, when people are ill, it impacts our society, it impacts our community, it impacts our families. And so there really is a need for everyone to get involved and to support patients with FND and to help them get better.
Yeah, I think that this idea is very important, because they are young people. It's one of the first causes of disability, and it's not any kind of good news, or like, okay, you are
Right,
not going to die, but you so
right.
be happy, because this is not an actual ill, and I think that it's yeah, we should think about that more often, and because it's very, very, very sad at the end. Very sad.
You can see
Okay.
I get very passionate about when I talk about FND. I definitely
But it's
I
normal.
it
It's
stirs
normal.
me up a little
I
bit.
prefer that because, you know, when we go to speak about FND at hospitals, some doctors say things like, "Okay, this is not important, because this is people that want to be ill and doesn't want to work, don't want to work, so they want like the money from the state, these
Yeah,
kind of things." That it's very sad, but you can listen this
I I hear
every
it. I
time.
hear it. Good.
Yeah, so
Yep, I
it's
hear it
normal
quite
that you
often.
feel like
Yeah. Well, and luckily now we have research to show that the
yeah,
brain is functioning differently. And we
yeah,
also have recent research to show that patients want to get back. They want to go to
you
work.
want back.
They want their lives back. And I've never seen probably a group of people that really do want to be engaged and active again in their lives. And
Yeah,
we want to
because
get them.
it's like the topic of the malingering thing, that is
Yeah,
always there. Like, okay, only FND patients are malingering, because in the other illness we don't have any malingering. So it's like
right.
it's crazy, but it's the real life of a lot of people that are suffering from these kind of ideas, that we have the responsibility to cut off for forever and ever, and try to give the correct information, because as you said, it's like one of the first causes of disability, and people are struggling with this problem. So, Bridget, thank you very much. I don't want to take more of your time because I know that it's only a little interview, but I want you to come back soon because we have a podcast in the ICE Foundation that it calls Neuroconsciencia. And we have a lot of programs about FND and FMD and a lot of neurological stuff. And we talk about hours of, of things that are interesting for us. So I hope that Manuel have told me like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, not more because Bridget is very busy. So but I enjoy it a lot, and I think that we could meet soon and speak a lot of more
I
time
love that.
of this topic, because I think that is very, very interesting, and it's very, very necessary too for health in general, for these persons in particular. So, Bridget, thank you very much, and I hope
Thank you.
you come from Spain soon, and Andalusia, like I said, and we'll be here for meeting you. Thank you very much, Bridget.
Thank you.
See you.
Fantastic. I wish you the best. Bye.
Same. Bye.